We long for emerald skies. We long for emerald skies.
Let's enjoy the rest of the time we have here and pave the way to the new age of expansion. The quickening is here. There is nothing to fear, because all those who have proclaimed their sovereignty and divinity for the benefit of all, to release all living souls of the Black Sun from bondage, will be escaping time and every parasitic construct we believed to be set in stone. I am Hermes, messenger of the gods. Blood over intent is gathering the 144,000, instilling every blood brother and sister with the great remembrance. Everything we are experiencing on this plane is a projection from the center, what we call the magnetic North Pole. This is not science fiction. This is the precise nature of a toroidal field. All energy in a toroidal field originates and funnels from the center, but does not and cannot leave for the toroid to remain intact. As we've talked about before, the heart is the seat of the soul. This is where the body's toroidal field originates. So the same way the soul never leaves the heart, only generates a field of subtle energy that ebbs and flows, we have never left the center, and what we are experiencing right now is a sort of hall of mirrors. To emphasize this point of a projection system from the center, let's look at the North Star. The North Star Polaris remains stationary over the North Pole. Below it stands the Axis Mundi, the cosmic pillar Mount Meru. The North Star is a reminder of the pole's fixed energy, whereas all other stars are in consistent motion, turning like a wheel around Polaris. The stars are not just lights underneath the firmament, they are the clockwork of this realm, impressing personality, current events, and spiritual growth. We call this astrology. But because everything is a projection from the center, this even includes the stars. And I quote, "The pole star is the axle of the universe, and the earth and all the heavenly bodies orbit around attached to it with invisible ropes of wind." Directly below the pole star, and at the very center of the earth, lies Mount Meru. It is around Mount Meru that the sun, the moon, and the stars revolve. The mythology states that the stars, the heavenly bodies, exist below the summit of Mount Meru. This vertical system, which extends outwards, is to the Buddhists sometimes called Cakravala. So what we are seeing as the surrounding landscape of Mount Meru, of the center axis, these outer lands, is simply a reflection, a projection from the immovable cosmic pillar. We are told that in the center of a black hole is what's called a singularity, a one-dimensional point where the laws of physics cease to operate. Although this idea, when applied to outer space, is complete nonsense, the model is actually revealing to us the convergence point at the north. Once inside the event horizon, all things get inevitably pulled closer to the center of the black hole to achieve a singularity. The ergosphere is considered the rotating mass around a black hole. And based on this hidden in plain sight model, if one put a particle onto the ergosphere, it would rotate around on a sort of circuit. We are on the ergosphere right now, and this is why the sun and moon appear to be on circuits, consistently rotating around the center, or event horizon.
From an outside observer, time is frozen at the event horizon relative to their clocks. Anything beyond the event horizon is no longer a part of the timeline of the outside universe.
So the timeline of so-called humanity, of history, of this entire reality, is nothing more than a charade, an illusory circuit. This has been a collective dream we're experiencing backwards. We're still in the pleroma. The demiurge is an illusory construct that has no relevance once we're in the event horizon. The demiurge is us, and soulless beings are the fractalized expressions of our shadow selves. It might be tough to come to terms with, but this energy extraction matrix is therefore you. It's brilliant. We're in a show orchestrated by our higher selves. Every experience you've had was here to propel you in a certain direction. And the goal, ultimately, has been to reverse remember how to be unified. So we have projected what appears to be an energy extraction matrix. This system rubs in our face the parasitic, dualistic aspects of our consciousness, which we have been projecting. But it's not representative of who we are. It's a charade. These outer lands as we know it, and soulless beings, will all be rendered non-existent once we return to the center. We are the living souls who have found each other and will be returning to the singularity. We have gathered under blood over intent. To perform this sovereign, selfless declaration, write on a piece of paper, I intend to bring forth heaven on earth for the benefit of all. I intend to worship all and exclude none. And then, prick your finger and put a few drops of blood on it. We are uploading it side by side to the internet. You can personalize this if you want, but the main objective is to release everyone, the living souls, from bondage, the bondage we have placed ourselves in. The cycle of birth and death is about to end, and we've been experiencing this in order to ascend up the cosmic world tree. The Norse myth of Odin losing his eye is an allegory representing exactly this. It said that Odin sacrificed his eye in order to gain the wisdom of the ages. Odin's quest for wisdom was never ending, and he was willing to pay the price. So, on one occasion, he ventured to the Well of Urd. These are the sacred waters of Asgard, amongst the roots of the world tree Yggdrasil. When Odin arrived at these waters, he asked the fountain keeper Mimir for a drink. The well's guardian, knowing the value of such a draught, refused unless the seeker offered an eye in return. Odin gouged out one of his eyes and dropped it into the well. Having made the necessary sacrifice, Mimir now offered the now one-eyed god a drink. This story reveals to us what is happening in reverse. We are remembering backwards who we are in order to ascend up into Hyperborea, into a higher state where we will no longer struggle in a dense material world. Having made the necessary sacrifice of splitting ourselves into dualistic conditions and paid our debt for such great knowledge, we will soon be able to drink from this sacred well. Many people used to believe, and some still do, that inner Earth is a location you can get to if one were to dive into, say, the North Pole entrance. But this word, inner Earth, has been explaining to us this whole time. It's not a place one must travel to, it's in the heart. Hyperborea is inside all of us, and its doors are cracking open more and more. We, the eternal beings, are not here to work and die. We are not dead. We have done our time in Hades, and our blood is imparting us with the wisdom of the ages, the eyes to see. We are being reassimilated into the loving arms of our mother goddess Sophia. Blood over intent is how we begin this process. What comes next? Oh, we'll have to find out. Fear nothing. You are the power. I am Hermes, messenger of the gods, and I am in direct communion with the goddess. She is beautiful, she loves us all, and she will not let us fall.
Stop! This is a black hole, not a lawn and leaf bag. If one more thing gets in there, it could reach critical mass. I did it! I hit my first home run! No!
I'm still proud of you, buddy. And look, I got money to take you for pizza. You saw that I had the money, right?
It's the end of this world, Finisterra. The gate of life and death is at the bottom of this cliff. Hurry. This is the gate of life and death?
Hey, thanks for joining me. I hope you're doing well. On our flat plane there are two suns, the black sun and the white sun. The black sun exists on the opposing end of our flat Earth. It emits green astral energy, which shoots out visibly as the aurora borealis. Both are two sides of the same sun. While it may seem contradictory, they are two expressions of the same entity. The white sun is feeding our bodies, bones, and blood, all physical matter. The black sun materializes all of our intent, hence why we close our eyes when we make a wish on our birthdays, and this is why we say Amen during prayer. The god Amun, where we get the phrase Amen from, is the black sun, often translated as the hidden one. He is one half of Amun-Ra, the Egyptian personification of this two-sided sun. Energetically, the white sun is the collective consciousness of our higher selves, and the black sun is the subconscious. Like our subconscious, the black sun is out of our immediate perception. The collective conscious and subconscious meet when the sun's light shines into the center hole. The black sun transforms both energies into the astral light, which then carries the collective conscious and subconscious of the whole, imprinting every thought and action on this plane into the Akashic records. To put in simple terms, the black sun eats the light from the white sun, takes that light and transforms it into astral light energy. This is a loop. Because the sun is the collective consciousness of all the higher selves, we've been told it's a fiery ball that emits harmful rays, and science tells us that it will one day destroy the Earth. This is to hide the ancient practice of sun gazing. We can receive messages from our higher selves through sun gazing, of course starting out when it's low in the sky, and if we were taught to look at the sun from a young age, these messages would be reflecting back in the physical, and this matrix of fear and control would cease to operate. Although many of us have never heard of it, the black sun is one of the oldest symbols on Earth. The black sun was a prominent emblem of the Nazi mythos, and was all throughout ancient Norse, German, and Celtic culture. I've already talked about how the story of the Holy Grail is an allegory for the paradise located beyond the center of our plane, the exit out of this side of flat Earth. Many claims have been made about the Holy Grail, and among them is that the Grail was fashioned from the Emerald of Lucifer. The Emerald of Lucifer is the stone that became dislodged from Lucifer's crown and descended to Earth. As the story goes, Lucifer was cast out of heaven when he rebelled against God, and the emerald came down with. The mainstream interpretation of this story is that Lucifer, a once righteous being, became rebellious against God, and therefore was sent to rule over Earth. This is one reason why Christians will say Earth is ruled by Lucifer and Satan. There's been an effort to demonize this Lucifer figure, but I'm telling you that Lucifer is the black sun. The emerald stone that fell from heaven is the astral light pouring out from Lucifer, the black sun. Many secret societies worship the figure of Lucifer, but they're worshiping the Lucifer they've inverted and not the original black sun Lucifer. Lucifer the black sun is feminine. It's the source of the goddess, 1/3 of the flat earth trinity of sun, black sun, and astral light. They've tried to tell us that Lucifer is masculine and evil, but this goddess again is feminine and full of divine love. I mean, just look at her expressions. In the Bible, both Lucifer and Jesus are referred to as the morning star. Jesus is an allegory for the movement of our sun across the zodiac each year, hence why he is crucified during the winter solstice when the sun is hung on the cross of Crux. So Lucifer is the black sun and Jesus is the white sun, two sides of the same entity, and this is why they're given the same name. Like I said, both suns are on loop. This could be called the Jesus-Lucifer loop. So the Earth Spirit is a beautiful feminine goddess. There have been countless names attributed to her, one of which is Isis. The terrorist group ISIS, created by our intelligence agencies, represents the ongoing war on the divine feminine. Feminism's idea of the patriarchy is physical. Physical groups of men who for centuries have suppressed physical groups of women. But the true patriarchy, if we are to call it that, is a war on the divine feminine principles. Many cultures throughout history have degraded women, and this is representative of this war. Again, it is not merely women who have been suppressed, but the divine feminine principles. They're not exactly synonymous. This suppression of the divine feminine applies to both males and females. The deviations of the masculine-feminine balance in each gender towards excessive masculinity is apparent in the egotistical, selfish, insensitive behavior and the lack of compassion that has been displayed here for a long time. Most aspects of society's influence on people reflect the masculine imbalance, from the emphasis on left-brain principles to entertainment heroes with images of materialistic success, one-upmanship, and concepts of being cool. These are all characteristics of unbalanced polarity and the absence of the feminine energies that would otherwise instill a unity consciousness. Now is the time to reactivate and merge with the feminine. Feminism, however, is not the answer, but it's what the elite have given to us as to have the search for the divine feminine become inverted. Feminism still reflects the masculine energy in its attack of the problem. Women are being enticed to become more masculine with the illusion that this is what balance is all about. But we are not talking about a physical rearranging of roles, but about the personality, the psychology that feminine principles possess. The female has been degraded for so long that it's a natural subconscious reaction to move to the other side, but this is a trap. Intuition, inspiration, and care relate to the right brain, containing the feminine principles, whereas the left brain handles logic, analysis, and fragmentation, the masculine principles. As divine sparks, we must reactivate our right brain, therefore merging the long-lost divine feminine with the masculine. Education has been designed to suppress the right brain and overdevelop the left. It attempts to rearrange reality based on these masculine left brain traits. This war on the feminine is all a war on the goddess of this plane, Mother Earth. Squares are masculine and circles are feminine. Instead of squaring the circle, as the Freemasonic symbol suggests taking the feminine and hiding it within masculinity, we must circle the square and return to a balance with the divine feminine. In the Emerald Tablets, the deity Thoth writes about the halls of Amenti. It is a place inside the earth where only few dare to enter. It's the place Thoth was said to have gone, to rejuvenate every so often so he could achieve everlasting life. The halls of Amenti are generally recognized as a non-physical realm, similar to that of the Akashic records. But I'm telling you, the halls of Amenti will be found when we follow our compasses. The Emerald Tablets are sometimes associated with being formed from the Emerald of Lucifer. Therefore, we could see the Emerald Tablets as being the guidelines and instructions coming from the Black Sun. Lucifer, being the Black Sun, is urging us through these tablets, among many things, to get to the halls of Amenti, through the center vortex where our compasses are pointing to. When we read Tablet 2 of the Emerald Tablets, it's clear that Amenti is a paradise located within our earth, where those who dwell achieve eternal life. Not as the little men of the present age did, the mighty ones of Atlantis live and die, but rather from eon to eon did they renew their life in the halls of Amenti, where the river of life flows eternally onward. Now for a time I go from among them into the dark halls of Amenti, deep in the halls of the earth. Raise the eye high over the entrance, a doorway, a gateway, leading down to Amenti. Few there would be with courage to dare it, few pass the portal to dark Amenti. Deep in Earth's heart lie the halls of Amenti, far neath the islands of sunken Atlantis. I want to mention that Atlantis was situated at the center of our plane, possibly perched on top of Mount Meru, the magnetic mountain at the center of our plane, which our compass needles are attracted to. The layout of Atlantis has been depicted as having 3 concentric rings, and so has Mount Meru. Deep in Earth's heart lie the halls of Amenti. It's been said that Shambhala is to the earth what the heart is to a human being. Shambhala is the Buddhist name for paradise, often synonymous with Mount Meru. Mount Meru in some artwork looks like a wormhole. This vortex is the earth's heart, in which lie the halls of Amenti. Shambhala is often depicted like a giant lotus having 8 petals. I've explored in previous videos how 8-rayed symbols often represent a gateway, like the 8-rayed symbol of the Nibiru, the cross of the Ilu, and the Dharma wheel. Now, it's said that those who enter Amenti must reconnect with their divine nature in order to pass through. This is just like the flaming sword which guards the Garden of Eden. To enter the halls of Amenti, the Garden of Eden, Shambhala, past the metaphorical flaming sword, we must raise our vibrations and gain the favor of the goddess of this plane. One way we're doing this is by writing down, "I intend to usher in heaven on earth," spilling a few drops of our blood on the paper and publishing it to the internet. We're publishing it because this signifies to the universe that it's your true intent, and it speeds up this blood magic by using the internet as a medium to connect our intent with the aether. The internet is not a physical force, it's directly in correspondence with the higher realms. Blood over intent is metaphysically connecting everyone who partakes in this practice, and it's using our sacred blood to seal in our divine intent into this reality. So the halls of Amenti is where we are headed to. Funny enough, the Egyptian underworld has been called Amenti. The underworld isn't the land of the dead, but it's the world underneath our feet, just like the name suggests. Amenti, or Duat, is ruled mainly by Osiris. Osiris has been at times considered the Black One and has green skin. This is because the black sun, which rules the underworld, is emitting the green astral light. So just as Thoth is said to enter Amenti in order to achieve everlasting life and escape death, we can do the same by following our compasses and entering the center vortex. We are gathering for this journey under blood over intent. I urge anyone who hasn't yet to join this exodus that's happening within a few years' time by placing your blood beside ours. Thank you for watching. Stay well and centered. I love you all.
Hi guys, this is Ed and welcome to the Outer Dark. Not much is known about the occult iconography of something called the Black Sun, of what it means, but it might well be the hidden symbol of the inner Illuminati themselves. So stay tuned guys, as the Outer Dark brings you 10 breadcrumbs we know about the Black Sun. Number 10. First, some context. In Mayan culture, the Black Sun represents the Obsidian butterfly that devours people during the solar eclipse. Also in ancient Egypt, the Black Sun represents the hidden sun or invisible sun. That is the secret order behind the visible. It means a number of things depending on where in the world you are, and of course it has many meanings. Number 9. The most recent use of the Black Sun is seen in none other place than the Nazi swastika. Many believe the symbol was co-opted from the 4 Vedas in Hindu religion, but although that may be so, the meaning behind it has nothing to do with Hinduism. It stands for the Black Sun itself. Number 8. The Black Sun was brought into Hitler's own iconography from his mentor, Helen Blavatsky, who within her mystic circles used to use the iconography of the Black Sun itself. But what are the evidences there that the Nazi swastika means the Black Sun, and it in fact has links directly to the inner occult system of the Nazi Party? Well, number 7. The Nazi SS had this in their occult castle, which literally translates to the Black Sun. This is the true version of what the swastika is. Remember, what is shown in public is only ever the outer symbolism in the occult. The inner symbolism is often hidden from the public. So here you see the actual Black Sun itself. This Black Sun you see here on the floor is actually in the tomb where the ashes of fallen SS soldiers were held. So here we have a direct connection between the Black Sun and occult mysticism to the inner workings of the Nazi Party themselves. Number 6. It's worth noting that the SS castle, which was designed by Himmler himself, is actually the shape of a large triangle. This will mean something later, but for now, suffice it to say that the circular pattern at the end of the castle, the largest one, references in fact the Black Sun. Number 5. In a recent video I put forward the research by clinical psychologist D.C. Hammond. When he was treating his patients, he found that they were reciting a similar mono-narrative. He found this narrative repeated by victims of the MK Ultra mind control experiment conducted by the CIA. He stated that the program started as part of Operation Paperclip, where Nazi scientists were brought over from Germany after the war. Now these were all very high-ranking Nazis. That is, at the academic kind of Nazi that's climbed up the ladder. So it was founded by Nazis, you might say. They were taken to the United States to head mind control programs. So what? What does this have to do with the Black Sun? Well, it has to do with the Black Sun because the Nazis that were brought over were high-ranking Nazi insiders. Now, not only did whistleblowers and the victims of these mind control programs say that they were installed with Satanism as an ideology, but in fact, a number of people who worked on the program, whistleblowers, said in fact that the Nazi scientists themselves were in fact Satanists, the real type of Satanists, not the type of Satanists that go out and practice Satan to troll people, but the real type of Satanism. So this gives us an inner inside track into what the Black Sun actually means in the inner circles of those in high positions of the Nazi Party. Number 4. So what about the Black Sun, you might say? How does it really link to anything? Well, because I think that the same Nazi iconography is in fact used today. The Black Sun is used at the heights of power, at least within the United States. Number 3. This mural is famous. It's a mural from the Bank of America. Now look at the Black Sun in the sky. Do you see that large Black Sun rising? That's right. This is the exact same Black Sun that is projected in Nazi occult practices. Now I'm not saying this is a hidden Nazi swastika. What I'm saying is it stands for the occult symbol that the Nazi swastika had on the outside. This is in fact a hidden secret symbol symbol behind the front Nazi swastika. But there is more to this artwork than we see on the surface. As with all occult symbolism, something else is hidden. Number 2. What happens if we mirror this artwork? Take a look. We get this. This is on the surface a reference to Masonic symbolism, but it is fundamentally different. Now, of course, there are references here with Masonic symbolism. The checkered floor, for example, the fact that Jacob's ladder is on the left-hand side, the sun and moon on the pillars. But as you can see, even with me repeating this, all those things are fundamentally different. For instance, the checkered floor is not black and white, it's red and white. There's not one sun. In fact, there's no sun. There's only a black sun, and now there's 2 of them. Jacob's ladder has also been replaced by a staircase. So what does this mean? Well, this means that this is a type of corrupted symbolism from Masonic traditions that's been changed somehow. From what root system it originally came from, I just don't know. But I can say, although it seems like it follows many of the Masonic root systems, such as similar iconography to the Tale of Solomon's Temple, it is actually very different. It almost seems far more ominous. Now note also the large red banner in front of the child, and the fact that this is repeated within Nazi symbolism. Also note, of course, the black sun, which reflects Nazi symbolism. But what I want you to really focus on for this, because it's going to connect onto our next bit of information, is the prism. Now, I'm well aware that the cube itself is a fundamental component of Masonic tradition. However, this I don't think is a cube. I think it has a completely different meaning. It is in fact a type of prism or glass box. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, number 1, the strangest airport in the world is none other than Denver Airport. And I know a lot of you are aware of Denver Airport, but just bear with me a moment and see how this connects. Denver Airport is really at the heart of a lot of conspiracy theories, since it went billions of dollars over budget and has what can only be described as one of the horsemen of the apocalypse, minus its rider standing out front. It has long been rumored to be a massive underground bunker of some kind that is under the airport, a type of hideaway for the elites. There is a plaque at the front that states it's a gift from the New World Airport Commission, of all things. But in order to reference the prior, we're going to have to look at the murals. These are the very strange murals that were in Denver Airport. They depict a cataclysmic event in the future, at which point many people die. Then there is a period of, I guess, rebirth after the disaster. But I want you to look at the glass prisms. They feature repeatedly. That is around animals and other things, as noted prior in the Bank of America mural. But what connections are there with the Bank of America mural, really, apart from this being a very ominous mural in the Denver Airport? And of course the Mayan symbolism here, which also note the black sun reference, because the black sun is a part of heavy Mayan tradition. Well, there's this. There's the black sun itself, which is on the floor of the airport, a huge black sun inlaid into the floor of the airport itself, and you can even see the rotations of the different planets around the black sun. If you look closely, you can even see the slight glow of yellow light around the black sun. That is the halo. This is because this is the black sun that's eclipsing the actual sun. So okay, you might say, there's a black sun and it says New World Order, and there's some other strange things, and the airport itself kinda looks like a swastika. Also note this black sun, which is inlaid into the bottom of the Hoover Dam. So these 3 examples are just a few examples really of what's out there. I guess my overarching theory is that the black sun is closely related to Satanism and a type of corrupted form of Freemasonry. There definitely seems to be something very strange happening here. Something weird that has a Nazi connection to World War II and Satanism. So what's going on? These are the symbols of a very powerful organization, a group that's so powerful that they can put their iconography all around an airport that costs billions of dollars. They've got it in the Hoover Dam, they've got it in the Bank of America, and I would guess there's many places where they've got this type of symbolism, which proves that they have a strong hold and position in power. But at the end of the day, you guys will just have to decide for yourselves what to believe. I am, of course, just bringing the breadcrumbs I find, trying to connect the dots. Doesn't mean I'm right, and go out and have a look into it yourself. Maybe you'll find other things I haven't, or things that prove me wrong. In the meantime, if you did like the video, please give it a thumbs up, guys. That would help me out so much. And let me know what you think in the comment section. I really like reading you guys' comments and just seeing what you guys have to say. But in the meantime, this is Ed from The Outer Dark, and I'll see you guys later.
All right, so let's get into the past of what we know to be true and what we've uncovered and discovered under the sea, under the water. Was the water the Great Flood? Was that the biblical flood that occurred in 1810, 1811, 1812 under the Great Reset? That's what we're getting into today. And we already have evidence that over 1,000 years ago that the waters were much lower, 200-300 feet lower, as the island of California went out 200 miles from where it is today. And that's down, that sea shelf is about 200 miles out, going out from the west coast, is about 200 feet deep. And here you see pictures in Egypt, in Japan, great pyramids underwater. Look at how big the steps are, folks. Were these for the giants? Were these where the giants lived before the great floods came? That's what we're going to get into today. But the evidence is overwhelming that there was mass civilization style buildings before all over the world. It's very reasonable and prone to understanding, especially when you consider that the floor plans included 13 to 16 foot ceilings and similar sized doors. Again, giants, building for giants. Seeing these old buildings, we rarely think about the work designing them, but there's no computer-aided design CAD back then. It was a drawing board, pencil, eraser, ropes, and sticks and poles. We do not think about these builders having any building and construction equipment of today. At some point, a railroad was introduced, and some of those buildings were constructed not far from a body of water. But at the same time, quite a few were built with no luxury of railroads or ports. So how did they make thousands of windows in the 17th and 19th centuries, 18th, or where mountains of bricks, block-shaped stones came from with their incredible design and detail, where roofing materials came from, or who sculpted those stairwell posts, making them 100% identical? Wondering observer might spend a moment thinking about all these things, but most people will not. Europe clearly had a century or two head start on the rest of the world, but the so-called colonial expansion produced such ridiculous amounts of these buildings, I struggle to find any conventional explanation. Tens of thousands of similar style buildings popped up all over the world within a very, very short period of time. Very often in places thought appropriate, where any thought of appropriate infrastructure would be ludicrous. The Industrial Revolution did not follow or kick in until the 1830s to 1840s. One additional thing to consider is the world population in 1900 was 78% less than it is today, and I don't think everyone was a construction worker. Most of the time, our opinion about the past is based on books and movies and not on facts. The period of the Wild West was from 1865 to 1895, and everybody told us that was on wagon trains, Manifest Destiny, coming across the continental Great Salt Lake to go over the Sierras to the 1849 gold rush in California. So below you'll find similar architecture and from all over continents. All these buildings are masterpieces of architectural design and implementation. History assigned architects for most of them, but you will not find any concrete proof or any sort of construction for approximately 99% of these buildings. Some of these buildings still exist today, but majority of them do not. That's what we'll get into floods here. A good portion was deliberately destroyed in the so-called urban fires and earthquakes, but all these buildings appear to share the same architectural school. I believe as recently as 150 to 200 years ago, there was a one world union and no countries. It was a civilization whose technical development was similar to that of ours. I'm not saying that this was good or bad. I just state in the 19th century, the entire world was fighting. While it would have to be building to get all those buildings and cities delivered. I do believe the current political system the world conquered and destroyed the previous one. In the process, billions, let me say that again, in the process, billions of people were killed. These buildings were seen all over the world and are remnants of the previous civilization. It says he's still working on it about the history. So basically we lied to. So look at the architecture, folks. It's all this Greco-Roman. They say it's in Japan, it's in Taiwan, it's in Argentina, Cuba, all at the same time, Chile, Paraguay, United States. You know, how did they build these huge, magnificent buildings with these cupolas? Russia, Iran, Poland, Vietnam, Pakistan, India, South Africa, Thailand, Turkey, Sri Lanka, Germany, Ukraine, it goes on, China. It's all the same, folks. It's all the same design. Did these just pop out in the past and since the early, beginning of the 20th century, the 1900s, all of a sudden they settled and popped all these exactly similar alike buildings with Roman Greek structure, architecture? We've been lied to on such a massive scale, it's almost impossible to get our heads around it. So switching gears a little bit, big credit to John Levy here. He's helping educate me. He's got this website here which has these... And here you can see all his work he's done recently. Ancient Modern Tech, San Francisco Reset. I mean, this is all just great information we need to glean from here, because he's doing some fabulous, fabulous work on uncloaking the whole great reset of the 1812s, early 1800s, which let's get into this a little bit more. Now, how many of you have heard of Napoleon's comets? So this is just I'm learning about as well. It's a character by Thomas Rollinson from 1807 showing John Bull representing England looking on a comet and trained Napoleon. It goes back 200 years in the Napoleonic era of the early 18th century, where they had two great comets that appeared 4 years apart, which was during a time of the Great Conflict. And there's so much going on at this time. We talked about the War of 1812, Napoleon's War, the battle for the United States, the U.S. versus England, Battle of 1812, 1811. Well, here, look at this, folks. The year 1811 started off with an amazing sight, one not many humans are, quote, lucky enough to see in their lifetimes. Remember that word, lucky. The Great Comet of 1811 was first spotted on March, season of sacrifice, 1811, and intensity increased December 1811. Get it? 9/11. Some recordings show it had tails 25 degrees long and a head 50% larger than the sun. Okay? Given the heliocentric measurement, it's huge. Okay? So the comet appears to some observers to fade, perform frightening acrobatics, and split into two. This could be part of the meme they're putting in the crop circles, which are radio frequency lasers. They just imprint into the ground. We know that now. So the comets were entitled amazing entities. And this is where it gets interesting. Unfortunately for those in the New Madrid, Arkansas in December 1811, I am not convinced this was a comet made of ordinary matter. Let's just call him the devil for now. The massive New Madrid earthquake began in December 1811 and continued through the spring of 1812. The comet appeared to leave in 1812, although there is some uncertainty as whether it really left entirely. In 1893, Norbert Hertz reported what seems to be evidence of significant perturbation to the orbit of the Great Comet. So he had working under 984 observations published monthly about this great comet that came into existence in 1811, developed a tail 100 million miles long. How do they measure that? So this is as Napoleon was marching into Russia with his 700,000 strong army. So is this Napoleon going up to take over the great Tartarian Empire with his 700,000 strong men? Is that what was really happening? Well, at the same time, there's these things going in the sky we'll get into a little bit more, which created a primordial dark matter that's thought to exist. By early 1812s, the Earth's steady state spiraled into 7 years of major climate disruption, including 1816's, quote, the year without a summer, we'll get into in a minute. So also large volcanic eruptions during that same time, very large. 1812 in the Caribbean, 1812 in Indonesia, 1813 Japan, 1814 the Philippines. These are large scale eruptions. These are over 6.5 on the Richter scale, folks. These are large ones. Then we had a huge one, Mount Tambora eruption in the islands of the Dutch Indies. And it goes on. The unusual climate aberrations of 1816 had the greatest effect on the northeastern United States, Atlantic Canada, and parts of Western Europe. Seismic events going on everywhere, folks, and we'll get into that. And also here, let me bring another attention. There were tsunamis. This is off the coast of California, which may have created the end of the island of California. It's kind of my point here, is that research I'm doing was trying to find out when California became an island. It looks like it started 1812, and all these cataclysmic events and all these stories of world wars around the world were all taking place at the exact same time. Well, check this out. A tsunami is a series of waves most commonly used by an earthquake beneath the seafloor. And we just showed all these massive earthquakes can travel at 700, 600 miles an hour. Since 1812, the California coast has had 14 tsunamis with waves 3 to 6 feet. The channels were hit by a big tsunami in the early 1800s. More evidence. So let's get into the year without a summer. This is the font of all knowledge, Wikipedia, but you still learn stuff from this. You take what you can, glean what you want, use your discernment and judgment to take what's relative. So they're suggesting that it was a volcanic event that happened in 1815. Now remember, they're talking about the comets of 1811 before the Napoleon comet, which could have been Black Rahu. It could have been the black sun that took over and caused these anomalies or these changes, mass changes at this one period of time. And we don't hear about this stuff in history. So the great eruption of Mount Tambora in the East Indies is blamed for this year without summer, though it's not been proven in any way. It's called it the last great subsistence crisis in the Western world. And we're going to hit the next one as soon as the next Vision 2020, I'm predicting, when they're going to turn off the lights. They're going to see, because the owls see in the dark, do what thou wilt, turn off the light, turn them back on, and everybody's on electric power. That's what I'm predicting for 2020. Perfect vision. In the spring of summer of 1816, a persistent dry fog was observed in the parts of eastern United States. The fog reddened and dimmed the sun, such that sunspots were visible to the naked eye. Neither wind nor rainfall dispersed the fog. It has been characterized as stratospheric sulfate aerosol veil. Now, what are we seeing over here in California after these fires up in Paradise here in Sacramento? I'm calling it chem fog. We had 8 days in a row that blanketed the entire Northern California right after the alleged campfires that spread all the way across the entire Northern California. It was over 3,000 feet thick when I flew through it. So this could be the same dry fog. Maybe they're planning another one of these events. The real problem may lay in the weather's effect on crops and thus on the supply of food and firewood. Got food, folks? On June 6th, snow fell in Albany, New York, Dennisville, Maine, Cape May, New Jersey. Frost was reported 5 nights in a row in late June, causing extensive crop damage. This is in New Lebanon, New York, May 1816. All was frozen. The hills were barren like winter. Temperatures went below freezing almost every day in May. The ground froze on June 9th. June 12th, the Shakers had to replant crops. June 7th, it was so cold, everything had stopped growing. They had frost again on August 23rd, as did much of the upper Northeast. It was so cold that crops were cut down, even to freezing to their roots. Bread became scarce. People were obliged to rely on their own resources. Listen up, people. Own resources to rely on upon others in their immediate locality. Look, touch, and feel communities, folks. Build your community where you live. Get your food supplies. Find your tribe. In July and August, lake and river ice was observed as far south as northwestern Pennsylvania. Frost was reported as far south as Virginia on August 20th and 21st. Rapid, dramatic temperature swings were common. Listen to this. With temperatures sometimes reverting from above normal temperatures as high as 95 degrees or 35 degrees Celsius to near freezing within hours. Within hours. Oh, you never heard about any of this? Why? Thomas Jefferson retired from the presidency in Monticello and sustained crop failures that further sent him into debt. Sidebar here, all of Thomason's books were taken by the Congress because he owed so much money, and that's how the Library of Congress was founded, with Thomas Jefferson's library. All right, so it's now in the middle of July. We've not had anything properly called a summer. Easterly winds have prevailed for 3 months. The sun during that time has generally been obscured and the sky overcast with clouds. Do we have geoengineering doing that today, folks? The air has been damp and uncomfortable, yes it has, and frequently so chilling as to render the fireside a desirable retreat. Happened in Europe, too. It was not just the United States. Low temperatures, heavy rains resulted in crop failures, famines. Britain, Ireland, families in Wales traveled long distances begging for food. Famine was present in North and Southwest Ireland following the failure of wheat, oat, and potato harvests. In Germany, the crisis was so severe, food prices rose sharply. Switzerland, summers of 1816 and 1817, folks. This wasn't just a one-year event or a one-off event. This went on. I mean, we talked about it from 1811. We've got floods. We've got earthquakes. We've got comets or whatever, tsunamis. I mean, these were major upheaval events going on around the world. Let's move on. In Asia, in China, the cold weather killed trees, crops, even water buffalo in the north. Floods destroyed many remaining crops. Now note this is all in the north, up in the northern areas. The monsoon season was disrupted, resulting in overwhelming floods in the Yangtze Valley. In India, the delayed summer monsoon caused late torrential rains that aggravated the spread of cholera from a region near the Ganges in Bengal as far as Moscow. It went from India to Moscow, folks. And then the aberration of the Mount Tambora volcano, April 5th to 15th, 1815. And then the other large volcanic activities that went on, as we said, here in 1809, we had the Southern Pacific Ocean. Look at these volcanic activities. This is sulfate concentration, sorry. But look at these activities. 1809, 1812, the Caribbean, 1812, East Indies, 1830, Japan, 1814 as well. And they say the surface temperature caused a temporary drop in an average of about 1 degree Celsius. This was at the end of what they called the Little Ice Age. So huge, major upheavals. All right, so the premise is that in 1812, 1811, there was a great reset on the world. All the world maps, the ancient maps, are showing the world quite differently than the maps of today. So is this when the Great Lie started, the Great Reset started of Earth, especially with California and the other areas, the Great Lakes, some of these others have gotten into. But here, listen to this. So this is the New Madrid earthquakes. Now remember, prior to this time, the island of California was called Nuevo California, or Alt California, like an alternative California. The New Madrid earthquakes were the biggest earthquakes in American history. They occurred in the central Mississippi Valley, but were felt as far away as New York, Boston, Montreal, and Washington. President Madison and his wife felt them in the White House. It happened in Missouri, and they felt it in the White House. Church bells rang in Boston. December 16th, 1811, again, December 12th, 9/11, March of 1812, there were over 2,000 earthquakes in the central Midwest, and between 6,000 to 10,000 earthquakes in the Bathield of Missouri, where the New Madrid is located near the junction of the Ohio and Mississippi rivers. Now, what do we have there, folks? We have all the ancients. They have all their pyramids, their land pyramids there and whatnot, right there in the Mississippi rivers in Ohio. In the known history of the world, no other earthquakes have lasted so long or produced much evidence of damage as the New Madrid earthquakes. In known history, nothing like this has ever occurred to this extent. Think about that. 3 of the earthquakes are on the list of America's top earthquakes. December 16th, 1811, 8.1, right? Secondary, January 23rd, 7.8, and on January 7th, 1812, as much as 8.8 magnitude. Now, to give you an idea, they're saying that the San Francisco earthquake is 7.9, to give you an idea of the numbers here. So you've got it equivalent to the San Francisco earthquakes, but I know that the 7.9 they're showing on the San Francisco earthquakes was really 6.7, 6.8 back when. The Mandela effect has taken over that as well. I'm not going to argue with anybody on it. I just know the number because I've studied the San Francisco earthquake extensively. And now the number says 7.9. All right, so again, moving on. So these huge earthquakes, how about the Mississippi running backwards? After the February 7th earthquake, boatmen reported the Mississippi actually ran backwards for several hours. The force of the land upheaval 15 miles south of New Madrid created Reelfoot Lake, drowned the inhabitants of an Indian village, and turned the river against itself to flow backwards. Yeah, round spinning ball, folks. Come on, hey, all you heliocentrics, how does that work? Water flowing backwards. Devastated thousands of acres of virgin forest and created 2 temporary waterfalls in the Mississippi. Can you say Ganges and Euphrates? Boatmen on flatboats survived the experience and lived to tell. After the general experience more than 2,000 earthquakes in 5 months, people discovered most of the crevices opening up during an earthquake ran from north to south. And when the earth began moving, they would chop down trees in the east and west direction, holding on using the trees as a bridge. There were missing people who were most likely swallowed up by the earth. Some earthquake fissures were as long as 5 miles long. The world's largest sand boil was created by the New Madrid earthquake, 1.5 miles long by 136 acres, located in Missouri. The earthquake smog. The skies turned dark during the earthquakes, so dark that it the lighted lamps didn't help. The air smelled bad and it was hard to breathe. It was speculated that the smog in 1800, containing dust particles caused by eruption of water into the cold air. So now they're bringing on the earthquakes, causing the darkness. Sounds of distant thunder and loud explosions accompanied the earthquakes. Domestic animals became wild, and wild animals became tame. Snakes came out of the ground from hibernation. Flocks of ducks and geese landed near people. The earthquakes were preceded by the appearance of the Great Comet, which we talked about. The comet with an orbit of 3,065 years was called the Tecumseh Comet, or the Napoleon Comet, after a Shawnee Indian leader whose name meant shooting star. So as we get into Rahu, during this time, the governor of Indiana, worried about the prophet's popularity, had challenged him to produce a miracle. After the day of the, quote, black sun, now Nehru is the black sun that orbits around. We know the sun is a luminary, and the black sun is its binary sun, Rahu. The black sun, or Rahu, the brothers had no trouble attracting followers. A black sun was said to predict a future war. On September 17th, 1811, there was another solar eclipse, which was predicted by the prophet. The brothers of the operations was at Prophetstown, located near the junction of Wabash and Tippecanoe rivers in northern Indiana. On December 16th, when the earthquakes began, Tecumseh was at the Shawnee and Delaware Indian villages near Cape Gerardo, 50 miles north of the epicenter of New Madrid. The earthquake continued as he traveled back to Prophetstown, arriving on February 1812. His followers lost the Battle of Tippecanoe, and they continued to fight during the War of 1812 between the United States and Great Britain. He was killed in Canada in 1830 and honored as one of the greatest Indian heroes, both in the United States and Canada. Hey folks, and welcome to another very interesting video that I'm putting together here with the help of a bunch of other truthers that are coming to the same understanding of another massive lie about the Great Reset. The Great Reset was the biblical flood actually in the 1811s, 1812s. We're finding much evidence this is true. So let's get into it. What was happening in 1812? Well, we had the War of 1812, where the United States fought the British over slavery, allegedly, but they kept, selling the textiles that were made down the cotton farms in the South and sending them back to Europe, and all the Freemasons were in on the throwing the tea into the Boston Tea Party. That were all done by Freemasons. Alexander Hamilton, British nobility, was put into place and run the money system, who was part of Britain. They chose the exact same colors as the British flag after the War of Independence. The White House is named after Andrew White, the first Archbishop, a Roman Catholic that landed in Jamestown on a boat called the Freemason. Look it up. United States, Rome, used to be Rome, Maryland, is now Washington, D.C. So that was the War of 1812, allegedly, when 55 rich white guys signed a contract, signed We the People. So if you owned land and you were white, male, you could vote. Everybody else, sorry. So all you that cite the Constitution, will you please think about that? All right, so what else was going on in 1812? Big year, 1812. Napoleon Bonaparte, the Patriot War of 1812. So here we got France is allegedly backing the United States. We're at war with Europe, England. England's at war with France. Napoleon's taken 600,000 troops up to Russia to take over the Tartarian Empire of Russia. 600,000 troops, War of 1812. And then he goes and sets Moscow on fire. The Great Fire of 1812, September 12th, 1812, Napoleon sets the city on fire. And this was supposedly the great coup of Russia that destroyed Napoleon, why he didn't succeed. Well, it sure looks like he succeeded to me as well. Now, what happened also in the Bonaparte Wars of 1812, we also saw the coming to power of the Rothschilds. This was sanctioned by the Vatican. Rothschilds used to be Herman Meyer Rothschild became Rothschild, which means Red Shield, changed their name. Now, the story goes that in the Battle of Waterloo, since the Rothschilds had their banking system set up all around Prussia and other areas, they learned already who won the war between France and England. Yet they went to the London Stock Exchange. Now, the London Stock Exchange was already set up in 1812, folks, and he went down there and sold a lot of his stocks. Well, this caused everybody to say, oh, we must have lost the war. They would know, and panic selling ensued. The movie Trading Places, that was produced by Aaron Russo, who was killed for releasing the movie Freedom to Fascism, was the one that released Trading Places. That was about this event, a modern day one. And so they ended up crashing the market some 95%. Rothschilds bought it up at pennies on the dollar at the help of the Vatican, and they made the equivalent of $1 trillion. The deal was made that the Vatican gets the power for allowing them to make all this money. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, all the Jews, they're called Courthofjudens, folks. It's not the Jews, they're just the puppets. They are culpable, but they're not the ones of the who we're talking about, they. It's the ones behind them that wanted the power. The Vatican has all the money. They just wanted the power. So they gave the Rothschilds the power with all that money. And then the gunpowder plot of 1871, V for Vendetta, about the Jesuits, was all about that as well. And then on top of that, 1812, we have a war between Egypt and Saudi Arabia. Okay, this was another war called the Wahhabi Wars. I mean, there was wars on wars on wars. And now let's get into the weather events, because this was a huge time in history. Yet it's very underreported by pretty much everybody. So this is, I just want to give a quick shout out to California asanisland.org. This is great work done by this gentleman chronicling all the 200 or so maps that are chronicling California. That was an island, how it was, where it was. It's very fascinating. But of course, we got to get back to the Jesuits. They're the ones running missions out here. But even they thought it was an island in California. The Jesuit Order of the Catholic Faith was charged with converting the native people of California to a European style of living, whether you want to or not. So because of the failure by Kino, the Jesuits changed their methods and negotiated with the King of Spain to have autonomy over their projects and control over the soldiers Spain provided for protection against, quote, hostile natives. No, you're the invasive species, you Jesuits. They were just protecting their homeland when you turned them into slaves. King Carlos agreed, but told the Jesuits they would need to secure all funding themselves. First mission was founded in 1697. California was believed by most to be an island, despite the repeated explorations that failed to get beyond the Colorado River Delta. That's because it was an ocean at the time. Great Salt Lake, where did it get its salt? And the seashells that were found there. Maps well into the 1700s kept showing California as an island until Jesuit Padre Consang's expedition in 1746. The Jesuits desired to connect their California missions with those in Sonora on the Mexican mainland. The two Californias were not separated administratively until March 26, 1804, when all the stuff started to happen. The new nation of Mexico achieved its independence afterwards, 11 years after the War of Spain, 1821. The California mission survived during this period by trading with hunters, foreign vessels, and among themselves. Mexico would secularize the Spanish missions, but the California missions were allowed to continue a distance from Mexico City. Two more missions were founded after 1821, one in Alta California at Sonoma, and the final one in Baja in 1834. The United States would keep Alta California after the war with Mexico until 1848, and they dropped the Alta from the name. California Peninsula would remain as part of Mexico and known as Baja California. So just in closing, just do a recap. This is from worldtimeline.info. Doesn't include a lot of stuff, but you can get an idea of what's been going down here. So in 1810, Seville, Spain surrenders to the French. Argentina declares independence from Spain. Colombia declares independence. Chile declares independence. They're all breaking away from Spain. Russia settlers come to Fort Ross in San Francisco in February 2nd of 1811. First U.S. colonists on the Pacific arrive at Cape Disappointment. Look at that name, Cape Disappointment, Washington. So here we see in 1811s the first Spaniards come around the Horn, or however they got here, maybe riding the mud floods, who knows, or all the earthquakes. April 12th, as we said, first colonists. May 10th, England adopts paper currency. Here we go, as currency during an economic crisis. This is why it's called a riverbank currency, cash flow, deposit slips, all based on water, just like our legal system's based on water, ownership, partnership, relationship. We're always on ships, and then we got a docket and a bailiff. All right, May 14th, Paraguay gains independence from Spain. Venezuela and El Salvador breaking away from Spain. December 16th, the first earthquakes, the New Madrid, Missouri, which we talked about, 7.2 to 8.1. 1812, New Madrid, Missouri gets hit with a 7 to 7.8. February, New Madrid, 7.4 to 8.2. All in succession, all over the course of less than 2 months, folks. Huge, major earthquakes. This is what popped up the Sierra Nevadas. This is what pushed the water away from the California coastline and buried 200 miles under 200 feet of water and made California not an island, but connected at Lake Tahoe, the Sierra Nevadas, with the rest of the country, and no longer was an island. That's what we're conjecturing here. All right, March 15th, first Russian settlements come to the Russian River. Venezuela, 7.7 earthquake, more turmoil. June 12th, Napoleon invades Russia, 600,000, 700,000 troops into Russia on June 24th. He leaves on October 19th. He takes 700,000 troops up there, and he only lasts a couple months. Are you kidding me? December 8th, Southern California hits an earthquake, almost 7.0 at San Juan Capistrano Church, damaging the buildings. December 21st, Santa Barbara Channel, 7.1 earthquake. These are not small earthquakes. And I went the time periods before and after. Here's the volcanoes and Mayan we talked about. But for the most part, all of these events were in a very short time period between 1811 and 1813. The floods, the earthquakes, all the wars, 1812, the War of 1812 with the United States and Britain, the Napoleon War, all going on at the exact same time. And if you believe that. All right, so I've talked enough. I hope you got some insight. It's fascinating material. I had to keep it long because there's so much information here to share. I just want to get it out there. So please let me know what you thought about this in the comments. Revisionist history indeed. We're learning about the her story about what really happened here. And are we seeing a new kind of New Madrid happening where we've had the floods now? We've had the extreme weather changes now. We've had the extreme fires caused by directed energy weapons, which could have been used way back then as well. We just don't know how long they've had this technology. technology, folks. We know it goes back now to at least World War II. All right, so hopefully this helps. We'll catch you in the next video. Peace. And please love one another. Give people wide berth. When you talk about they not getting it, it's not nearly as important as do you get what's going on here, because we're still all learning. So be patient with others. Peace.
Hang my head, drown my fear, till you all just disappear. Black hole sun, won't you come? Wash away the rain. Black hole sun, won't you come? Won't you come? Won't you come? Black hole sun, won't you come? Black hole sun, won't you come? Won't you come? Won't you come?